Top tip this month comes from Dan Neilson. Here at Hickstead, Dan, we've got a number of permanent fences, including the water. It's a big water fence if we walk over towards it. Now, if you're riding down on a horse to this kind of fence, what are your first thoughts?
Well, basically, they normally give you a good long run-up, so you want to get a good canter at the jump because it's a really wide jump. A lot of people think it's a really hard jump to jump, but actually it's easy if you know how to do it.
And looking down here at the front of the fence, Dan, we've got the brush down here. It's not always a brush. Sometimes it's just a lath or a piece of wood, a take-off board here. How does it differ depending on what's in front?
Well, you often see a lot of wall. You get a little solid wall in front, or even a white picket fence is on a slant like the bush is. But I mean, yeah, course builders do like to vary it from day to day.
And you're looking at an expanse of water like this. How do you get a horse to jump things like this? Because you don't see a water this big very often.
You do need a good water jumper to start off with. They don't really like to land in the water, but I think as long as you get a good canter, and you really want to be as close to the board as you can as possible, and basically keep your leg on all the way. Some people would do was they'd get to the board and they'd drop the reins or give a little bit less contact like they would to jump a big jump, and you know, you really need to keep hold of them and keep sat in the saddle and your leg on all the way to the front of the board.
So if we're going for our top tip, let's just have one thought. What's your one thought for anyone coming to a water fence?
Basically just keep riding all the way. You know, trust your eye and keep going really. Don't change your mind, because if you change your mind, that's when problems happen.
So carrying on our theme of top tips here at Hickstead, we've come to another of the famous fences, the Devil's Dyke. Joining me is William Whitaker. William, looking at this fence, first thoughts when you're in the Derby is the approach. How do you think about the approach to this fence? Three elements to this one.
Well, it's a difficult one for the horses to work out, so I think you definitely got to, you know, calm the horses down after the bank and sort of get to the rails, you know, and then sort of just give them plenty of time to actually work out, because it's different with it on a slope going into the bottom with a water tray.
And walking down, there'd be a first element here, and then you come down, as you say, to the water. When we take to the water, between the first part and the second part, what are the problems here? You're going downhill for a start.
Yeah, for a start you're going downhill, and the horses, with it being a very tall vertical going in, they're going to look a bit through the vertical into the water, so they're going to like sort of not really know what's going on. So that's what you've got to allow for really. You've got to allow for time really.
So they're going to be finding their feet over the first part and getting set up for this second. What makes this fence so hard when we're looking at it? Is it the fact it goes down and back up again?
Yeah, and with it going down and then back up, it's a very startling fence, and the horses just aren't used to it.
And how about the striding? When we get down to the water here, what is the striding through here? Do you have to adjust at all, or is it on a consistent stride?
Well, it's supposed to be one stride there and one stride coming out. But you know, I've seen some people do a lot different. But that's what it's supposed to be: one stride and one stride. It's important to get in and then really, you know, give a bit of leg and make sure they can get out.
Once you've cleared the middle part, thoughts for making it up the hill, long way up, as we can see there, very high up the third part.
Yeah, it's a bit of a difficult one really, because it's still long coming out, but also it's a very tall vertical, you know. So you've got to sort of allow for the distance, but also allow for the height of the vertical.
Now, it's been one of your first times in the Derby. Any tips that you were using in the build-up?
Well, I took a lot of tips off Michael, who's done it more times than I can remember. So he just basically just told me what I've just told you: just relax and try and keep as calm as possible.
So we're going to take one thing away from riding a Devil's Dyke. What's your one tip to anyone coming to this sort of fence at whatever level? Because we see them in novice classes as well, somewhat easier. But what's your top tip?
I'd say stay relaxed. That's my top tip.
That's what you do all the time. Thank you, William.
Thanks a lot.